Okay, I think we're live.
Great.
I'm gonna check and on our page real quick. Oh, we are. Wait, we're not. Why is it? What's going on? Where are we live?
I show that MicroAgency is streaming, but I don't know where to see it.
No. Okay, so it's the delay. It's
Okay.
there's like a couple second delay. I think this is for like people who play video games, so that there's no like people can cheat stuff
Oh,
like that. But
stream snipers.
yep, exactly. I don't see us live on YouTube yet, but
I don't see that either, but oh, there it is. I will get that link.
did we manage to pull it off?
Did we? Let's see.
Okay, yeah.
Just
All right.
a second.
We are fully live and we're ready to talk about PPC, the most exciting subject on earth. I mean, I spent way too much time in the Google Ads console or in the dashboard. I am, I would say most of my time's in there, just managing client accounts or figuring out how to turn accounts around when they're going crazy. So,
Yeah, I have spent too much time today in Google Ads console, and I'm sick of it.
yeah, what have you
But
been working on?
we have been working on quite a few dumpster fires that have to be extinguished.
Ah,
And that's always something that pops up from time to time on Google Ads. Mostly PMAX, some PMAX problems.
PMX dumpster fires don't sound good.
Yeah, the PMAX dumpster fires aren't good because we don't have so much data to see what is burning.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think what we're going to have to do with this particular campaign is just uh, put it all out and start it over again,
Fuck.
um,
I'm
which
I'm
sometimes is the only
experiencing
way.
something similar. Not with PMX though. I got two. Well, my white label client, and then I've got another white label client. Both actually. Finally, they started listening to me that we should be doing call tracking. That we should be checking if the phone calls that come in are actually qualitative, and they're now noticing that a lot of them have not been. Um, and previously, the calls have been good. So now there's this whole situation where they don't know when the calls are good and when the calls are bad, um,
Okay.
which makes it very hard to optimize on like what's going well, right, with the accounts. So I'm just with one of them, we're kind of starting from scratch. Like we're just like, okay, we're just gonna do this again, take our learnings, and try to get that to work. And that one's doing pretty well. We're actually yeah, we're getting calls. Like basically all the calls that we're getting from our call tracking are just great. Like they're
Okay.
qualified. Um, no
And you're
job
using
calls or
CallRail for
anything.
this?
Yeah, we're using CallRail,
Yeah.
which is pretty easy to set up. It does have some bugs every now and then. I don't know if
Hmm.
you've used it before, but like
Yeah.
it's a bit weird when you make the connection between CallRail and Google Ads. Um,
Hmm.
like when you import the conversion action. I got it to work though, so that's great. Um,
I assume that you were already using Google's like native call tracking in a way?
I mean, we're using Google's like conversion tracking on phones.
Okay.
Like so,
Yeah.
like we were
Yeah.
like basically we had like I mean the set timer is like 60 seconds, like a sixty
Hmm.
second call is conversion, and those have been happening, but like we really didn't know if those were any good or not. So that's always a bit tricky. Because
That's
even
kind of surprising to me a little bit because typically we assume that if a call is over a minute long, it's going to be good, but that is highly dependent upon who's answering the phone.
absolutely,
Um,
absolutely,
but I feel like most of our clients pretty much will hang up if it's not a good call, or they'll be like, I'm sorry, we can't help you.
Yeah,
Usually
I
we
think one
assume
thing
if
I
there's like a
see.
5 minute call, it's going to be decent, but
I'd say like for one of the clients I'm with, all good calls are typically at least a couple minutes longer, like 2 or
yeah.
3 minutes, but some of them actually go up to like 7 to 9
Hmm.
minutes.
Yeah.
Um, but so that one is also in a little less competitive space, so that's great. That's a moving company. So just applying the best practices, just making sure that you're on the right keywords, making sure your ad copy is good, and like we're just getting calls. So like it's really good because we're able to just show, because like this is a white label client, so I'm working for an agency to do this. So we're just able to
Hmm.
show like the rather large client, hey, look, we're getting this many calls, and so many are actually turning into like quotes. We know your
Hmm.
average deal size is like about $1,200, so we are
Hmm.
adding this much revenue to your business, which is really really great.
Do
Because
does the end client have like a CRM where they track this in?
yeah, so they use Salesforce, so we have
Okay.
access
Yeah.
to Salesforce, so it's, that's really really useful. For this other
Hmm.
client I'm working for, we're in a super competitive space, super HVAC, which is just so hard to just get into anyway, and to just show up in the ads, get the right clicks. Like you're spending $50 to $60 per click,
Yeah.
and there we were getting a lot of calls, and we were getting most of those through competitor terms, right? So I was like, well, hey, that's actually not too bad, right? Like we can get calls through
Right.
competitors because people, like I see this across like a lot of my accounts, even like this moving company now, we get competitor calls. People are just like, hey, hello, like is this blah blah, and then my client's like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
This is another company, but
But
we do serve.
half the time that's totally okay because if you pick up the phone and you're friendly, like you have a very high chance of like
Right?
stealing a sale.
And
Yeah.
people are not that loyal to like a company, right? Like they might just know about that
Yeah.
one, and if they don't read enough to notice that it's an ad of another company, like
Yeah.
you can usually just
When
just get them. But yeah, so my client was like, no, we don't want to do competitor keywords. We don't want to be on
okay.
any competitor terms because our clients are saying that the people are just hanging up, right? Like they're calling in the moment they say no, it's not. You know, uh,
Okay.
John's HVAC, it's bye bye. But so we got like I basically finally got that. Like I got 3 accounts going super well, super great CPA, a lot of competitor clicks, but I was like, okay, well, I mean, it's doable because we're in a super competitive space, so why not use this workaround to get really great calls, assumingly so. And now we're on Colorado, and I'm just like, fuck, we need to turn this around. And I'm like, I don't know how we're gonna do that super quickly. So I'm just like, it's such a challenge to optimize and get the model to learn, like the learning model underneath the campaign on like a hyper competitive space. When you're spending like maybe $50 a day, like that's crazy.
And then wait until, for whatever reason outside of your control, the campaign performance tanks,
Yeah,
resets everything, and then you can't. Yeah.
yeah,
It's always, and then it's in super competitive. So you start paying the highest CPCs all over again,
oh my
working
god,
down from the
Uh,
top.
yeah, oh my god, you just
Lots of
start all
fun.
the way at the top again. Oh,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. Wonderful.
Yeah. I was doing some keyword research earlier today for a prospect, and in this niche, the top, uh, the CPC for the top of page is $187. And also the bottom of the range in Google Keyword Planner, which is usually fairly accurate. The bottom range was like $20, which is
Okay,
okay
well, that's
for
super
something like
broad
this.
though.
But isn't that a spread?
Yeah.
$20 to $187.
Oh my god. I think with something like this, like honestly, it sounds like there's just one major player who absolutely wants to be at the top. Uh,
Well,
competing
in
against
this
maybe another person
this
who's also.
particular niche, apparently the um, kind of the project cost on average is ten to $30,000. So
Okay.
you could imagine being okay spending 5 grand to get a client if they pay you 30 grand. So
Yeah, plus like lead gen, like I think a lot of people underestimate how high conversion rates you can get, um, like with these super
well,
high.
especially the more niched down you
Yeah,
are,
like
there's
I
only a few people to call.
I see like 30% conversion rates on some of my lead
Yeah,
gen accounts, and it's just crazy because you think like how can you get such a high conversion, right? Well, if your website is half decent and you are targeting like something that's super specific and super high intent, like you go very direct and very focused on that keyword. Yeah, like and then also if you bid to be at the top of the page, like it's pretty easy to get a conversion. Right? The mistake is to think that you need to or that you can get your clicks at a cheap rate, right? So,
yeah.
if you're in lead gen and you're thinking, oh, I'm gonna get those, $20 clicks while your average CPC is 60, that's a lot. Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, like in a case like this, how would you approach that? Would you like I would almost say like, hey, maybe just even test, target impression at just top of page, not absolute top of page, because 170 is pretty high.
Yeah, we rarely shoot for absolute top of page.
Fair.
Um, Often we're there, but I don't think that's what we're necessarily were to shoot for. You will, on a competitive niche like this, you will pay out the wazoo. But top of page where you're the first two or three at least,
Hmm.
that feels good. Um, but often, sometimes I wonder anymore if it even matters where you're being placed in so many of these
Same.
things. Like, especially when you get into more complex campaign types, in PMAX, you may never show up on the SERPs. You may be just in Gmail. Who knows? Like a Gmail ad. Like
Yeah.
you don't really know.
I was reading an interesting thread on Reddit where someone was like spending like quite a big budget, 30,000 a month on fitness equipment,
Hmm.
and they were using demand gen on
Yeah.
abandoned carts, and they were just killing it. And I was like, that's like,
Demand gen on, so like their audience was all of their abandoned carts and they
yeah,
would run demand gen just on that.
yeah,
That's actually, it's kind of interesting because demand gen is really just Gmail ads
yeah,
and YouTube shorts.
yeah. So like, I don't know, but like,
That's so weird. I like, why not just use your Clavio and like send a reminder to like, to people's email boxes? But if it works, it
I
works.
mean, like, I found it interesting, but like the person like was, I don't think they were a PPC person, like,
Yeah.
you know, like like themselves, right? But they sort of knew what was going on in a way, and they
Yeah.
were like, is it worth it to do remarketing? I was just like, yes, please. Like, if you've got like 500 abandoned carts or like,
Well, if you have enough abandoned carts to run a demand gen campaign off of, how many abandoned carts do you have? Maybe it's time to do some cart conversion analysis or whatever.
fair,
Like,
yeah,
do you have, like, what's your issue? Uh,
yeah. Yeah,
that's pretty high
I found that
volume.
cool
If
because like you just like I don't know. I feel like when I'm looking at like these small local lead gen campaigns that I'm running, I'm just like I'm making Google do like like triple the work it's maybe used to, right? Whereas like you've got these huge accounts with like like usually someone in house that maybe knows a little thing or two about PPC, but isn't a specialist,
Mhm.
and they leave so many ad products like ad inventory products on the table, right? Like there's so much you can do. Like there's so many ways to advertise. Like
And
yeah,
speaking of inventory, ad inventory products, there's a really interesting thing which um, it's a bit of it. It may be a bit of secret sauce,
oh,
and it may
okay.
be a bit of a conspiracy on my end,
Mm-hmm.
but it's played out. Um, so when you're talking to a lot of PPC folks, one of the first things people recommend, and I've been guilty of this too, because sometimes you do need to do it, is they'll recommend turn off search partners, don't no expanded network, shut down all the little
Mm-hmm.
extra stuff that Google, wants to place your stuff
Mm-hmm.
on. 99% of PPC professionals will tell you that's the first thing you need to do.
Yep.
And in many cases, it is something to do. What we have found is sometimes a dumb, like just a stupidly set up campaign can outperform a smartly set up campaign.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's really because it's just against the herd,
Hmm.
and you have so many of in competitive niches, you have a lot of PPC folks running really good campaigns, and because they know what they're doing, they know their shit. So they're like, we're turning off all of this, all the display network,
So
all
like no
search
one else
partners.
is like on.
So it makes it so much more easier somehow if you just go against the grain and test it. You should at least test it. I mean, it's probably not always a best practice, but it's worth a test because we have a specific campaign, huge budget, $30,000-$40,000 a month, and it works well when we have search partners on. If we turn search partners off, it just tanks.
That's crazy. Have
Yeah.
you like
So
yeah, like are most of the sales then just coming from those search partners? Or do you
no,
think there's
it's
some more
way more
complex
complicated than
yeah.
that.
Like there's some
It's
complex mechanism going on underneath that's
Yeah, and
affecting
I truly believe it's complex enough that I can't explain it, and but possibly neither can even Google.
holy shit.
There are so many touch points. People like to, as we started off talking about conversion tracking and like call tracking, people love to attribute whenever they can.
Oh yeah.
I do too. I want all my leads to be attributed. However, we often shoot ourselves in the foot by trying to over attribute and try to think we can cover every source, because a lot of times just running blind ads, just display ads somewhere, you just have, it's that classic marketing, you just have it everywhere and everyone's aware of it, and maybe they just glance, maybe, you never know, what if an impression that they scroll past for half a second actually triggered a sale? You never really know what it does psychologically. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, like there's so
that's
much more
kind of
involved,
what,
right?
yeah,
Yeah, I think that like I mean like as a Google person you can so get used to not think about like any brand or like impression or visibility. And I think that a
yeah,
lot of people who are very pro visibility are not really aware why they should be. Like they're just like they're all about awareness, but they don't really know like what it really does, right? Like there are people who are on the vanity side of awareness, but then there are
yeah.
also people who understand that there can be like complex mechanisms where your awareness can actually feed into another campaign that then catches that person or puts them under the marketing
It's
campaign or whatever.
it's
Uh,
so hard to quantify. Um, and it's so hard to quantify that I kind of wonder if anyone who actually quantifies it actually knows what they're talking about.
Fair.
Um, it's Yeah, I don't. It's so important. I think branding is so important. Um, I and I can't always give people the numbers to prove it. Um,
Yeah.
Sometimes we can. If we do like a short, huge branding campaign, we can prove it, especially with video or something like that. But it's hard to universally prove. But I really, really, really love branding. I
Yeah.
love awareness campaigns.
I mean, I still think that like whoever figures out how to do top of funnel well on Google is going to be a very very wealthy person. Like if you can figure
Yep.
that out, like if you can figure out how to effectively like advertise on display, on like demand gen, on like the more vague and fuzzy products like ad inventory products and PMAX. Like whoever figures that
Right.
out really knows what they're doing. Like they're going to be able to make a lot of money.
And I think people are. The trick is that it simply requires a massive budget. And
Yep.
so it
Yeah.
prices out most small businesses who can't
Yeah.
afford to even spend $500 a month on something that they don't know what's happening with it.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know, if but when you have huge companies whose maybe their annual ad budget is, you know, 5 million bucks, it's like nothing for them to spend, 100,000 a year on pre-roll,
Yeah.
but it helps them. It 100% does. It builds that brand. And
That's
I
crazy.
mean, yeah, it's just most small businesses can't support that, unfortunately.
Yeah, especially in smaller niches as well. Like if you can have that branding and like be one of the
It,
few companies that can do that, like that's super powerful. Like
yeah, you
like
can
you'll even see that
dominate
in
that space.
PPC agencies, like there are some PPC agencies where people everyone just knows those, right? Like
Yep.
if you're in PPC,
Yeah.
like that's already branding, right? And I think that
Yeah.
like
Everyone in PPC knows Solution 8.
yeah,
Like it's just, it's known. Yeah.
and I think that's very powerful because it can just lift you. Like it's going to create some sort of momentum for your brand that yeah that's hard to quantify,
Right.
but it is worth putting
Yeah.
money into. But also I would not focus on it in the beginning if you're like new, like if you're like
Not
starting a
not if
small
you're
company.
having to spend money on it for sure. If you can
Yeah,
find a free organic way to do it, that's awesome, but I wouldn't spend my money on that.
I also think too few companies do that. Like there are not enough companies that I see that are actually doing like branding, like personal branding or of their small business. Like I don't know if you're a
Yeah.
plumber, like just start doing personal branding. Why not? Right? You might be the
Oh, yeah.
only person in
It's
your
so powerful.
area who does that. Like the only person.
Yeah. I have a cool case study coming up that I can't wait for people to see. So cool. I'm
That's
so
awesome.
psyched.
That's awesome.
I'm so psyched. It's in progress. It's going to be a months long. Yeah, I'm a big fan of branding and putting a lot of money behind branding when you can. So, yeah, I will share more with people when it comes. But yeah,
Good.
so excited.
On
Yeah, I
on sort
think,
of the
yeah.
title of this stream, which is like I think I put it to something like conversion tracking. Yeah, calling offline. I think it's I don't like okay. So here's the thing. I think if you're in a small niche, not too competitive, I think you can get away with not doing call qualifying or offline conversion tracking, right? But the moment you enter a larger space, or the moment you're in some niche where there's a lot of competitors and a lot of competition, I don't think you can do without. I think you're flying blind in a way.
Yeah, totally.
I was thinking the same way you did, where it's like, okay, if I got a call, and if it's 60 seconds, that kind of says that that person is at the right place, right? Well, if your
Mhm.
client is super polite and just stays on phone calls with you, because they're like, hey, this
And
is
sends you to someone else who you really need. Yeah,
yeah, or
yeah,
like just like takes the time to listen to your story, whether that's a job application or like whatever, right? Yeah,
true.
those 60 seconds don't mean anything, right? Or
That's true.
and here's another tricky thing I saw. I saw people who were clicking the ads to talk about like whether or not their current appointment was actually set at the right time, right?
So they're existing people calling back to
Yeah,
confirm,
yeah, and like I see
and
that
they
number
just
and number.
Googled the, yeah,
Yeah, so they Google the name,
yeah,
or not even the name. Like they would just look for like AC service, and then they'd see our ad and they'd call and they'd be like, yeah, like I'm just checking. Is like is this like is my appointment in April? Is it still gonna be there, right?
that's hilarious.
Like it's
I
crazy.
think we actually have a couple questions.
Yeah,
Um,
let's go by the questions.
let's see. Joseph says, in general, and if you were to choose your first partner slash hire, do you think that two ambitious people should partner, or each one should partner, hire someone who have operation management skills? Both. Um, I don't think you should hire an unambitious person
No.
or partner with, and it's probably good to have complementary skills, but I wouldn't partner with someone who is unambitious.
Hmm.
Um, I'd find
Agreed.
someone who has both.
Agreed. I would also
Yeah.
make sure to partner with someone that already has skills, like that has done it
Yeah.
themselves. I would
Yeah,
almost
that's
argue
true.
like build your business on your own first, and then start looking for partnerships. Because if like when you do something solo, you can just learn so much. Um, Partnerships are always a little bit volatile. I think like there's at least a risk, and the more
Yeah,
business
totally.
sophisticated you are, the better partners you'll attract. First of all,
Mhm.
which reduces that volatility that you see a lot in early business partnerships. Like a lot of people have that. Um,
Yeah, and for me, I guess it's a little different because I'm now legally married to my business partner, so it's uh,
what happened?
yeah. um, but we started before we were married. I mean, we were engaged, but um, and clearly have some complementary skills. But more than any of this, like she was on her own before I was. I freelanced on my own for like 5 years before. I made all the stupid mistakes while where it was just my mouth to feed.
Yeah.
I wasn't screwing anybody else up. So I feel like we had kind of sorted a lot of stuff out before we finally, partnered up. But even more than complementary skills or ambition, just I think it's you find someone you can trust. That's like the number one thing. Someone that is a decent person. Honestly, it's a pretty low bar too. Like just find a decent person. Um,
Yeah. I mean, like character, that's a very important trait for any partnership. Uh,
yeah,
I mean, like in your case, if it's your actual partner, like it's obviously a different situation. But yeah, with new partnerships, it's very important that you've already been through the rough patches of starting a business, or at least know
yeah,
those mistakes, know how to build a business. Because I think it'd be very tough to move through that with like a partner. Like I think you could very much risk, and I like you see this a lot with startups, right, where there's this falling out where people just stop
right.
working together
Yeah,
because the moment shit goes wrong, it's like, oh, like you did that or I did that or no, I didn't do that, right? So that's really risky, I think. But I mean, people still do it. On the other hand, I'm pretty risk averse, or at least I've become pretty risk averse. I like running solo, I guess. I also like
yeah,
partnerships, but I'm very cautious with partnerships.
yeah. A very smart person once told me uh, he would only go into business with someone he could share his bank account password with.
Yeah,
And I was like, yeah, I that's scary, but I get that. I like that. Um, because there's things much more sensitive and worse than your bank account. so,
I I once read this book. I think it was called like Stock Market Wizards. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's a very good
oh
book,
yeah,
actually.
that's Jack something. I've read
Yeah,
that book.
I think it was this
Yeah,
book, and like one of the guys was like, yeah, like he was a bit different from like your typical finance person. He had like long hair and a ponytail and all that. And he said like yeah, like he would take like potential business partners like out for dinner, right? And then they'd be at like a nice restaurant, and like he would check if the person in front of him was married or not, right? And then he would check how that person treated like a waiter, right? Or and especially the waitress or the waiter of that person's preferred, like interest, right?
interesting.
And he said like if I have someone in front of me who doesn't mind like it's not cheating, right? But like who doesn't mind like like really looking at like like a waiter of the opposite sex while they're married, and perhaps maybe even making like remarks like, oh hey, like you're good looking or whatever, right? He would be like that's not someone I want to do
Yeah,
business with, because if you can like sort of like
That's
deceiving
smart.
your, the person you are supposedly in love with, right? You can
Yeah,
very easily cheat me, right? Like that's like
exactly.
a much lower bar. Um,
That's yeah, that's such a good like it's weird how intangibles like that, I think they're like way more important than the tangibles. You
oh
know,
yeah, for sure.
just how is this person as a human being? I would I would rather partner with a decent person who's an idiot than the very smartest asshole. Yeah.
I mean, you can make it like I'm also very cautious of like friendships as partnerships. Like I think it's better that a friendship develops through a business partnership than for there to already be a friendship and then a business partnership. If you get where I'm
I
going.
have I have unfortunate experience in that, but yeah.
I mean, same here. Like
Yeah.
I went into business with
Yeah.
someone I had known for 6 years, and it cost me my business at the time, which was making
Yeah.
him a lot of money.
Yeah.
Um, like it's very easy to sort of be blinded by like faults of friends and to give them too
Hmm.
many chances because you are already previously friends.
Right.
But when you're looking for new partnerships, definitely look at like a person because like you can always like get better together at whatever skills and projects that you're doing, but it's a lot harder to change someone's character, and I don't even think that's an undertaking you should try to do. Like that's going to be a waste of time, I would say. I think we do
Totally.
have a couple more things going on in the chat. Let's see.
Shane or Dynamic Equipment Rentals says naive opinion, but could you treat your awareness top of funnel stuff how you'd treat meta campaigns moving people through awareness levels? Yes. Um, I think in a lot of ways, demand gen, some of half of PMAX inventory, stuff like that is very similar to any paid social, like meta campaign.
I've
Um,
experimented that with though, and like I've experimented with like going top of funnel and then like trying to remarket to those people. It's fucking crap. Like I don't know. Like it didn't work out for me.
that's really think that approach works for the sort of products that work on Meta anyway,
Yeah.
which are typically going to be impulse purchases or more universally attractive things.
Hmm.
So like a widget or a shoe or something, that sort of marketing works for things where you just want to make a sale. You want to make a
Yep.
$25 sale.
Yep.
It's really easy to convince someone to make it, pay you 25 bucks. If you're equipment rental, just wild guess. I don't think that will work because, if I run a bunch of top of funnel stuff for renting equipment, like how many people actually need a ditch witch? Like how many people want a bulldozer today?
Yeah. Like
Even
how much
even
like
even a
syndication
construction
content do you need
professional
for this?
doesn't need a bulldozer today.
Yeah.
So that I think the power there is still in intent focused stuff like Google search, where someone is like, I need to rent a bulldozer today, and then you appear.
Yeah.
A little harder to kind of do that top of funnel brand building when you're such a specific and like expensive niche, or like relatively expensive. You could build a local brand, but I just rent a billboard for that, like $700 a month and you can have a billboard.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know.
I don't know. For lead gen, local lead gen, again, like I think top of funnel branding is great if you can do it organically, but paying for it is not something I would do. And I'd advise my clients against doing it. For e-commerce, I think there's a lot more freedom to like try out like display and like all kinds of like a little bit more top of funnel stuff. Also on the
Yeah.
PMAX side, like for example, PMAX on local is usually just going to be pretty bad. Like it's not gonna
Yeah, very bad usually.
like you just get
One thing
spam
to keep
calls.
in mind is The marketing approaches taken by global historic brands are entirely different than the marketing approach from a small local business or a small online boutique or something. If you look at like Mercedes Benz,
Mhm.
they have a brand that's 100 plus years old. They have millions of dollars. They have millions of people who love them already. And they can run branding, pure branding, for decades before they make a sale. A they can make an advertisement that a kid watches on TV, and he can't afford a Mercedes for 20 or 30 more years. So, and that would be just absolutely stupid to do as a small local business. You're not waiting 20 years for a kid to grow up and, rent your bulldozer or whatever, um, or buy your shoe. Or so you have to you have to keep that in mind. Like what you see done by huge global brands is not necessarily what you can replicate locally at all.
I think that's such a good take. Um, there are a lot of companies that want to be or want to sound like they're Apple or something, right? Like some massive,
Hmm. Hmm.
super sophisticated, popular brand. Meanwhile, they should probably try more to be like your local vacuum cleaner salesman, right? Like it's gonna get
Exactly.
them, it's gonna get them more sales.
There's and that is not to say you can't build a local brand. You totally can. You're just you're not going to do it by being an Apple or a Mercedes or a Coca-Cola. You're
And
going to
like
do it by
there's
being
this
the local
story.
vacuum cleaner.
I read this story ages ago. I don't know if it's true or not, but like some guy said that while he was in college, he went to a Steinway like piano brand like store, right?
Hmm.
And he was walking around there. These pianos, I think they're like 200K just like to get one, right? Like they're insanely
Yeah.
expensive. And he went there, and just the owner of the store like showed him around, like let him play some tunes on the
Hmm.
pianos, like basically did a full like hour long display or whatever, right? And the guy at the end just asked, like, why do you show me this? Like, I am like, 20 years old. I'm not gonna buy one of these pianos, right? And the owner was like,
Yeah.
well, because I know that after this, like, if you ever have the money, you're gonna buy one, right? Like if you're ever in a position where you
Yeah.
have this money, like, and if you want to buy a piano, you're gonna buy one for me, like, or at least from my brand, right? From this brand.
Yeah.
Uh, and like that's awesome, but like we can't do that, right? Like I can't do that. I can't
No.
like set out a
No.
line now and
I
like wait 20 years until someone buys from me.
Yeah, I gotta fill up my car tomorrow at the gas station. Like,
Yeah.
I I can't wait to fill it up 20 years from now. At the same time, there is an element of branding that can be done thinking
Agreed.
long term. If you plan on, even if a very small, I try to think long term. I'm just a dude with a very small PPC agency with 3 people in it. I'm still thinking long term, and I'm doing moonshot projects every once in a while that would have the ultimate goal of affecting something down the road. You just have to do that within reason, within your capabilities. Um, it doesn't cost a lot to show someone around a piano store and show them, an hour
Yeah.
of showing a kid a Steinway. That's not going to cost you a lot. That's worth it.
Yeah.
Um, for me, a lot of it is, I feel like almost every other day I'm walking through an account with someone who probably won't buy anything from me, or, doesn't need Google Ads help from me today. But maybe one of them one day will.
Yeah.
Maybe one of them tells someone else about me, and that's worth it. Like, what am I going to do otherwise? I'm just chatting online all day anyway. Like,
For me, like if you really enjoy what you're doing, it's also a lot easier to just do that. Like
oh yeah.
I had someone like reach out to me on Reddit like last week, and he asked me to go on a call, and I just spent like 3 hours like going through his entire account, and like I knew he was not going
Yep.
to buy. Like he didn't have the budget for it. Like his
Yeah.
store was very small. or his business was very small, and he was just super
Yeah.
thankful, and like he was like, hey, like, can I still ask you questions? And like, sure, like why not? Like send me a text or
And
whatever.
that's totally okay. I love that. Like it's not only do you get to see someone else's niche and how they structure their campaign and how it works, you learn what a small business owner needs and
Mm-hmm.
wants and
Mm-hmm.
needs to do to grow. You make a connection, you help someone out. There's very little to lose from that.
Yeah, you
Um, yeah, it's
just
just
develop skills. Whether it's just talking with people, or whether it's seeing another account. Because like I'm a firm believer that every account you work on or see makes the next account easier. So
yeah.
like just try to get as many, like try to see as many accounts as you can. Like that's amazing.
You will eventually see all the bizarre problems you can ever see, and it
Yeah.
makes it way easier when those pop up
And then
later
when
on.
new
Yeah.
problems arrive that no one knows or haven't seen before, you're going to be able to tackle them, right? You're going to be able to solve them
Yeah.
because you've seen it all before, at least some variant. I mean, that's sort of the topic of like, should you do free consultations? Absolutely. Um, are there better
I've
ways?
always
Probably.
I've always done free consultations. I like doing free consultations. Um, I'm a huge fan. Like I don't sell my hours. Um, I have very few hours in my week anyway, even fewer that I want to work on. So, um,
Yeah, and it always extends anyway. Like the moment I sell an hour, like they're gonna want to buy another one. Meanwhile,
yeah,
you
yeah,
just have a retainer fee. It's a lot easier for both parties.
yeah. I just like I want to structure my time and the amount of I only have so much bandwidth. Everybody only has so much bandwidth, but I want to structure that in a way where I'm enjoying it or I will
Mm.
burn out.
Mm.
And sometimes the people I want to talk to aren't in a position to either need my services or pay for them. I
Oh
don't care. I just rather talk to them. um,
yeah, and
it's
also
worth
like
it for me.
I'd much rather be measured by output rather than by input.
Yeah,
Like it's just
yeah.
uh, it's more efficient.
Yeah, it feels a little weird when everything's super transactional. Like I'm not going to talk to you if you don't pay me. Like it
Yeah,
just feels a little weird.
yeah.
I don't want to monetize every waking second of my life. Like I'm making money. I don't need to charge for this
I think
15
like a
minutes.
couple of months ago, I spoke with a former lawyer, and she said she had to invoice on 5 minute blocks. So
Oh, 5 minute. Can you imagine?
it's just like you send an email, like it took you 10 minutes, boom. Or like you get called by
No,
the client, and you guys are just talking for 5 minutes. At that, I think
no,
I
no.
think she said the lowest she saw was 3 minutes. Like 3 minute blocks was the lowest she saw.
No, I can't even imagine that.
Yeah, I think I don't know, like business talk. I think people who measure by hours, I don't think they really understand business very well. I don't think they've figured
I
out their
mean, how many
model,
hours do you have in your week?
right?
Like, not that many, a finite amount. And even
Mm-hmm.
if you're working every waking hour, you can't add any more.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't mean you make less money. I think you make more money, like, not selling hours because you can work 20 hours and bill for results, not your time.
Yeah, try to get like a
It's
cut
just the way
of
it
like
is.
the proceeding, like if
Yeah.
like if you're in the law space, try to get like a cut of the, I don't know, the settlement or whatever you're
I
doing.
was talking to a guy last week, and he was talking to this really, really successful architect
Mm-hmm.
who had this massive offices, like staff, a espresso bar,
Wow.
and they were just talking, trying to figure out, okay, because not all architects make a lot of money.
Yeah.
So this architect doesn't charge for designing anything. he just takes an equity stake in any of the real estate he designs.
Holy shit.
He doesn't charge up front for the design, which is typically hundreds of thousands of bucks for, even a small project. So he just takes an equity stake. And then over a course of like 10 or 20 years, he basically had this massive commercial real estate equity, like holding
You're not an
fund
architect
that
anymore.
just
He's
funded.
a real estate fucking mogul.
Exactly. He's a developer. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Developer with like design perks on the side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's his side job.
But that architect's making a lot more money than the person billing even per project or per hour. Risks for sure, like super risky.
I mean, like, this is,
but-
again, I think this is a long-term thing. Because, like, once you've got your basic needs covered, right? Like, once you're earning enough that you can just, save some.
You can take those moonshots.
Yeah, you can, like, take those deals. Because, like, I thought about it before, like, imagine you start with a new business, a new client, and the business owner is, like, sharp, like a good operator, right? And, you're maybe doing PPC, like, you could just say, hey, I want 10% of whatever you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it could make you a lot of money.
Yeah. It's hard, I think, in PPC. I've talked to people who do that or try to do that. I think it's pretty difficult because there's so many failures in digital marketing. It's like when you're talking about real estate, it's like there's a building there. Like at the end of the day, it's still worth something. But there's so many just struggling digital marketing scenarios, which is unfortunate. But then if they're not struggling, they're probably very unlikely to give you a cut. They're like, no, we're doing fine. We'll pay you your tiny retainer fee.
Digital projects I don't think are that great. But like if you are somehow in some, if you're working with some, either service providers or like some local business or whatever, and if you can like somehow secure equity, it could be interesting. But then again,
Shane says, thanks for answering the first question. Any thoughts on the search campaign structure? And his question on that was, I've set up 4 search campaigns and subsequent conversion goal value in buckets, 0 to 50, 50 to 100, 100, 200, 200 plus, based on the value of the keyword rental equipment I'm bidding. So I assume what you're doing here is that you have like 4 campaigns targeting cheap to high margin campaigns, right? Or
they're
sorry,
saying they've got conversion goal values in buckets. I'm thinking they maybe have several conversions.
So you're doing like TCPA on each of those campaigns with different values, or or is that just how you're
service page per rental like item, and then maybe conversion per form or something is worth more or less?
Typically what we do, it's the cost per day to rent different equipment of those costs. Okay. We do often structure campaigns. Well, not really price. We've done that in the past where we'll split like expensive products and cheap products into their own campaigns. But more often we split high or low converting products or services. So, you might have your most popular, your best sellers, and then you have we'll do like high, mid, low. And I think that might be a better way to structure it because you're going to have some really low volume, low interest rentals that maybe once a quarter someone rents something. So you don't want to spend too much money on that when there's not much interest or volume. I would assume that the best sellers are not necessarily the cheapest or the most expensive. They're probably distributed among those price points. So I would honestly probably do it more in like most popular to least popular if you're going to segment it like that.
Because like I'm guessing these are going to be individual pages, right? Like someone's renting out like maybe a large piece of equipment would be on its own service page, like I don't know, bulldozer rentals, and then like maybe just like a trailer could be another service. Because like it's not e-commerce. I don't think you can put this in a feed.
Well, he says all are call or location visit conversion goals. Um,
Because I typically split based on service. Like, like very clear example, like with HVAC, it's just like there's the installation, there's the repair, and there's maintenance. And I split based on those three. And then I also split by season, where heating has its own season and cooling has its
so
own
I would
season.
need to ask, like, what is the budget? What kind of budget range are you talking about here? And
Yeah,
what
that's
kind of
very
a
important.
geographical area are you talking about? Um,
Yeah, and the CPCs are your keywords because if the CPCs are very high and your budget is maybe, worth 3 clicks per day, it's going to be very difficult for you to split out.
yeah, and to
Um,
bounce off what Luke said, typically, I honestly think if this is your typical small mid-sized business with a just a decent small budget for one region, I would actually go simpler than 4 campaigns, because I don't think you necessarily will want to dilute a small budget across 4 campaigns.
yep.
I would just do one campaign and all your services or equipment like bulldozer, trailer, you know, ditch witch, whatever you have. Like you could have multiple ad groups within that one campaign, but I would keep it simple. It's at least what I would start with.
That's what I do with smaller accounts. Yep. Like if the
Yeah,
budget
like
is
it's
like,
very similar to like HVAC would be in something
yep.
like this.
Like if your budget is like below 200 a day, just one
Hmm.
like cooling campaign and one heating campaign, and then just have the different things in ad groups. So installation, repair,
Yeah,
maintenance.
if you're spending less than like 5K a month, roughly, I would say, like you need one campaign in most situations, unless you've run it for so long that you then know, no, I really have this thing I want to emphasize. We'll split it out, give it a bigger budget, and, hyper focus on that. But to start, just keep it simple.
What always sucks with like these smaller lead gen accounts is that you can't remarket because you just don't get the clicks for it. Like that's always so tough. Cause like you might spend $30
Hmm.
a click, and if you've got like 2K, you're just not gonna hit,
Right.
the 100 clicks a month. Uh, which makes think like there are these certain points or milestones that once you reach them with an account, like performance just like increases like crazy,
Oh,
right?
totally.
Like the moment like you're there, you can suddenly remarket, and suddenly you've cut your CPA in half, right?
Well, so like he updated his question and he said in Vancouver, so big city, expensive city too. Your CPC is going to be more than
Yep.
most. Your budget's 1.6K a month. That's very low. You are limited to with what you can do on that amount. So I would keep it as simple as possible until you can get it profitable and provably profitable. No, no, provably provably
Probably
profitable.
proud. Learn your English, man.
Uh, I promise I'm native English speaker. And then once you can nail that on something very simple, maybe don't even advertise all of your equipment.
I'd be
Maybe
very
pick one or
narrow.
two
Yeah.
or three things, your your most profitable, most popular. Um,
Yeah, like with a
Fix
budget like
that.
that,
Yeah.
you need to have some historical, I won't say data, but experience, right? Like you need to be able to
Yeah.
say, okay, well, in my regular business that, outside from my advertising, it's these services that are selling well, or it's these products that are selling
Yeah.
best. Pick
Yeah.
those and then just have them in one campaign. And start very
Uh,
narrow.
f-
Like,
yeah. For And for some color to this, I would consider, and I feel like most people advertising in North America would consider $1,600 a month extremely small.
Yeah.
Um, that's unfortunate because it's still a lot of money. I
Yeah.
would love an extra $1,600 a month. But
Yeah.
we, like when we're running campaigns as a Disco Sloth, the agency, we don't even like to bring on campaigns spending less than 4 or 5,000 a month. It's possible. It's very possible. It's just like sometimes it's like pulling teeth.
Yep.
It's just Google Ads has changed and gotten competitive, and it's just the price of admission. It sucks,
It's
but
honestly, it's unfair because for smaller accounts to make them work, you really need someone good. Like you
yeah.
really need
Oh,
someone who knows what
it's
they're doing.
harder to make smaller accounts work than mid-size accounts,
Yeah.
ironically. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, like I can definitely see that from my experience too. Like my larger accounts are just so much more pleasant to work on than because
Yeah.
like when a small account tanks for whatever stupid fucking reason, it's gonna take you like a month just to recover. And then you're just like the whole
Because
month the client is like,
the amount of
what's
data
going
points you're
on?
getting is so slow and tiny that
Yep.
you're like,
Like event
ugh,
test, like testing a new bidding strategy. Oh, that's gonna be a week, right? Like it's gonna take you a week to
minimum.
just be
Yeah.
able to test it out. And then
Yeah.
like if it's too competitive or you're not getting clicks or whatever, it's such a nightmare.
I agree. Yeah.
But like from my experience with like small accounts, start very narrow. Maybe like find 10 very high intent keywords per ad group. Like 10 is good. Uh, Make sure your conversion tracking is very good. Like make sure you track whatever you're
Okay.
doing, because if there's no conversions going into the account, you're missing out on like optimizations for further down the line, because you're gonna want to use maximize conversions at some point.
Yeah.
So you want to capture that
Yeah.
data.
That's one tricky thing here. Like, I think he mentioned he's using
Oh yeah, they're
location
all
and call
12 point
tracking.
calls. Yeah.
That's going to be rough, super rough, because neither of those are always super dependable conversions, especially location tracking. Um, it's possible they're just not as dependable as tracking a form submission or
Yeah.
a add to cart. So you may have to start with manual CPC. You may have to start with TCPA. I don't know. Like you just try all of them. I don't have the answer because you just have to test and
Do you
try,
start with
see what
TCPA
works.
as well sometimes?
Sorry, what was that?
Do you start with TCPA as well sometimes, like on new accounts?
Sometimes. Um, I think we usually lately lately, yeah, either manual or just to get on brand new accounts, just to get some traffic.
Hmm. Hmm.
Either manual or yeah,
I've kind of
TCPA
stepped away
sometimes.
from manual. Like I use impression share a lot instead of manual.
Hmm.
I just
Yeah,
make sure that I do my keyword research so I know what my max bid should be.
right.
It's just like I've
Yeah,
noticed that manual can get like it can get such work just keeping track of all the bids on a daily basis.
yeah. Some things though, if it's a small new account, sometimes the other ones won't start
Oh
though,
yeah,
and sometimes manual is like the only way to just force it.
I
I think
have
in most situations we switch away as soon as possible.
I've got one account. It's so stubborn. It Holy crap, dude. Maximize conversions? No. Target impression share? No. Manual? No. The only way I actually got it to work for the first time was with TCPA.
It makes no sense. You would think the math is all the same for all the
Right?
models, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, you. I wish. I wish it made
I
more sense
think
sometimes.
Google I was doing my dishes earlier today, and I was just thinking to myself, Google's gotten a lot more powerful, and like the results you can get from Google are crazy. Like the algorithms, like they can do crazy shit, right? But getting there has become a lot harder, I think. Like whereas before it was just mostly manual, very simple bidding methods. But now and I'm talking about HVAC, right? You'd expect that
Yeah.
most accounts would be similar. Well, one of them just did not get any, did not enter any
Yeah.
ad auctions, zero. Like,
It's weird, isn't it?
yeah,
Like you're working with multiple campaigns in the same niche, generally in the same country,
yeah,
and like why does this one not work?
yeah,
Makes no sense. You'd think if I'm selling a shoe, I can sell a shoe, but no. For some
yeah.
reason, no.
Yeah, no, with that one, I just decided to apply the TCPA I was getting from the other accounts, like the actual CPA. I just applied to it, and suddenly it started running.
Yeah, so that's annoying to think that you have to use your previous knowledge gained somewhere else to make it work. Because if you were just a solo operator running that, how would you know what the CPA is
Oh yeah,
for the same
like you
thing?
can only guess, and even if you were to hire a freelancer to do that for you, like
Yeah.
they wouldn't know, right? Like it's not like they would
No,
seem to
not
have
unless
that.
they'd run another one just like it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, like in a way that creates a moat, whereas it makes you very powerful as a specialist, right? Like
Just your
especially,
your knowledge.
yeah,
Knowledge.
yeah, the giga brain,
Yeah.
right? I
I've
don't know,
seen
like
so
I
much.
think, dude, the deeper I dive into Google and like what you can do with it, the more technical and just like in-depth PPC is becoming to me. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. Have you seen anything that Mike Ryan posts about like PMAX or some more data stuff?
No, I don't think so.
He is worth a follow.
Yeah.
He does. He works at SMEC in Austria. They have a. I think they do like PPC software slash other stuff.
Hmm.
I'm not quite sure actually, but they have a bunch of data scientists, and he does a lot of like research
Hmm.
on the Google side of things, and he has some really interesting insight in like what makes up the auction.
Hmm.
They have like hundreds of campaigns in their manager account, so they have like huge campaigns, like mega retailer campaigns. So they have billions of data points that they're pulling this from. He posts a lot of cool stuff that's worth
Mostly
looking at.
e-commerce or
Almost all e-commerce,
okay.
yeah. There's some folks out there like him who have a lot of knowledge of the back end. Um, it's so deep. I don't know if any one person in the entire world knows how Google works. Even
Hmm.
Google, sometimes I wonder if it's just so complex that I don't know if any
Like
single
I've said this
person
on stream
knows.
before, where like the more you do Google, the more you're just relying on intuitions, which is
Yeah, it
so,
becomes an art.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
so bad because everyone's like, oh, but it's such a technical thing, right? It's all the data and all that. Like,
I mean it
no,
is, but it's also not.
it's like learning to read the data and being like, oh, this is okay or this is not okay. That's weird.
Yeah. It's weird because like I think we've probably talked about this before, like I can just open up a campaign and in 3 seconds I know if it's a good or bad campaign.
Yeah,
And usually I can know, like, can I make this better within a
yeah.
few more seconds? So it's just intuition after looking
But
at
it's just
hundreds of them.
repeatedly like it's really just those hours that you spend looking at campaigns and looking at data and like being able to identify the story that's sort of
Yeah.
underneath the data.
Yeah, the
Because like I
kind
have
of the pattern
accounts that are
recognition or yeah.
like I've got accounts that like do maybe 30 impressions per day for months and they're converting. Like they're getting leads, like they're generating revenue, like 30
Yeah.
impressions a day. Like how even, right? Like and then maybe get like 3 or 4 clicks and that's it. That's the campaign. Like
Here's a weird situation that we had, like this was years ago now, for a client, super hyper niche. They had an ad budget of $500 a month, which is not recommended, especially for as they were doing like really high end legal type of development stuff. We ran this campaign for like a year, $500 a month. They got about one lead a month.
Yeah.
And I was always like talking with them, thinking like, can we bump this campaign up? Can we do something? Can we, let's ramp it up. Let's do something with it. And they're like, no, we're good. We have good conversations with people. I'm like, okay. And then like a year and a half later, their marketing director, like on our call, she's like, yeah, so the campaign last year, we did get one like project from it. I was like, okay, so is it profitable like year over year? And she's like, yeah, it was a $2 million project. And I'm just thinking, like, how do I, like, what data do I even look at in here to make this make logical sense?
Dude,
He's,
I have something similar. I've got an architecture client in California who only does luxury homes, like just like really
yeah,
beautiful homes. And he's spending a very tiny budget as well. And we just get like 4 or 5 like form submissions like every month. And I'm just like I write to him and I'm like, hey, like, can we increase budgets and like can we do this? And he's just like, no, 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 I'm getting good visibility and I'm getting good traction and like I'm happy with this. And I'm like, all right.
and
Sure.
and he gets a luxury home client,
Yeah,
pays for the
he
next
gets
year.
one, like that's a
Like,
200K project or something,
yeah,
right?
that's crazy.
From like, spending
Uh,
maybe 5K a year, right? Like or 10K a year. Crazy.
I need to figure out how to spend 5K a year and make a few hundred grand.
I mean, I honestly believe that if you can develop some like high ticket skill alongside PPC and then use your PPC to sell that skill, you can make a fuck ton of money.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, I don't know,
Yeah.
seawall repair or something.
I just need to buy a ship. I need to buy a ship that I can rent out for some weird
Wouldn't that be
service.
fun though, PPC for like ships?
This is an aside, but do you know how cheap ships are?
Yeah?
Yes. I'm so tempted. I don't even need a ship. You can buy ships for like less than a house.
Really?
And I'm not talking about a boat. I'm talking about a ship.
Like an
Yes.
actual like
An actual seagoing vessel.
what?
Yeah. For a couple $100,000, you can buy a ship, an actual like trawler.
Wow.
Yeah.
You could maybe refit it and like make the Disco Sloth office on.
I wonder if I could just buy an oil platform, like one of those platforms out on the
Oh
sea,
yeah,
just
that's cool.
co-working space. Nobody will ever bother you.
Like make it a co-working space, but like see if anyone shows. Now that'd be a great piece of content. That'd be a great campaign. Like just like turn an oil rig, like an old one, like a fucking platform, turn it into a co-working space. Anyone can like visit, right? And then just start advertising it like on YouTube and like on other places, and see if some crazy billionaire or millionaire decides to show up. Like that'd be funny.
That would be hilarious.
Like
Just for
Elon
some
Musk shows
PR
up
stunt.
doorstep, shows up in a helicopter.
Oh, well, we better end this stream before it gets too weird
Yeah.
because my bid on the ship is soon to expire, so I need to go make sure I'm still winning that bid
Oh yeah.
on shipebay.com.
Yeah. Maybe one day when MicroAgency, when our YouTube channel is so big, we'll buy
We'll
the
brand a ship. We'll brand a yacht.
or the ship or the yacht. That's even better. like I don't know, maybe like a couple years from now, like a stream from a fucking yacht. Yeah, that'd
Yeah.
be something.
Just anchored in Ibiza.
Yeah,
Yeah.
talking PPC.
PPC.
Yeah.
The HMS PPC. Yeah.
All right, everyone. Thanks for being here.
Sorry,
Um,
guys.
I hope this has been useful. Um, we love the chat interaction. We love the questions. I love that we never
Good
really talk
questions.
about whatever we make the topic, but hey, whatever. Um,
Yeah.
it be so. Um, yeah, that's the stream.
Yeah.
See y'all next week.